Welcome to Householders, a conversation about American life as Zen practice. I'm Inga Annie Wade.
And I'm Kyosaku John Mitchell, and we're lay members of the Atlanta Soto Zen Center.
I am about to start a full-time position at the company I am working at.
Congratulations.
And I'm very excited about it. I really am. I am a disabled person, as I've talked to about in length on this show. And I have to balance a lot of things just to have a regular, not work life. So I know that it is going to be tough starting a full-time position because I'm going to have to fit a lot of things in one day. I do anyway, but I will have to, like, on my lunch break, do a 30-minute workout, as well as eat healthy, prep food in the evening, and getting enough sleep, things like that. So on top of that, I think it's also very crucial that I finally get to a more strict meditation schedule. So it's interesting because we're kind of at a crossroads where you're like, maybe you should be less strict with your schedule. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to survive if I am not strict enough with my schedule this time around.
Well, it always ebbs and flows, right?
Yeah.
And within one person's life, but also just like this is the difference between the monastery and householder life, is that the monastery regiments the same thing for everyone. And in householder life, we all have completely different lives, and we have to somehow adapt that practice to every individual case, and every individual case within our own life. And they change all the time.
I mean, I would honestly love to, like, just live at a monastery. Maybe I say that now, maybe I really wouldn't, but I love the idea of living at a monastery and just meditating all the time. But that isn't what my life is like, and things are definitely about to change. But you know, I with my anxiety and with my health issues, which they're kind of intertwined, a lot of my anxiety comes from my health issues. I think it's important now that I create a schedule and I stick to it. And I want to do what you were talking about before by, like, creating it as a habit that would be similar to brushing your teeth at night. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, maybe what better way to do that than actually you put it into my nighttime routine where I'm doing all these routine activities anyway, just integrate it into those. Mm-hmm. Usually I read at night, and I think that I can replace that with meditation instead, because I don't know, I mean, the time has to come from somewhere, so I can't make new time, so I'm just gonna have to rearrange everything. I wasn't reading anything important anyways. I would like to say that I was reading Dharma or some sort of Buddhist teachings, but I wasn't, so I was reading comic books. Yeah. Because that's what I enjoy.
Enjoying things is good.
Yeah, well, I started it last night, so I was meditating at bedtime, and something popped into my head while meditating. Maybe I held on to it a little bit, but here it is. I want to do the Heart Sutra chant in the mornings to start my day, and then maybe if I could have a short meditation in the mornings, that would be awesome, but I'm usually very, very tired in the morning, so I'm going to guess that my best bet is to do the meditations at night and the chanting in the morning to kind of have that integrated into it. I would do the chanting at night, but I don't think my roommates would like that very much.
The constraints on the practice at various times of day are many and various.
Yes. So I think, like, at least it's in the morning, and if everybody's awake, then it's like, well, you know what, I just got to do this, so it's part of my religious practice. But I think also bringing some of the rituals from the Zendo into my house will make it feel more communal maybe, or maybe it'll just make it feel more, I don't want to say legit, but
Hmm.
it will conjure up the same feelings as that I feel in the Zendo, and maybe that'll like help support the practice a little bit more. Just feeling this connection between the Zendo and my home. Also, this past Sunday, I did tune in for a Dharma talk.
Yeah, I was so happy to see you.
So that could also be part of integrating my practice in there, just having more of these things going on. It's been really hard for me since the pandemic to feel a part of these Zen activities, and also like just being on Zoom all day for like work stuff and school stuff. I was just like, by Sunday I'm like, I would just not use technology at all during the weekend. Even if I had something to do, someone wanted me to make a logo for them, I'm like, I don't want to do this. It's going to have to fit in the week, because once Saturday and Sunday rolls around, I don't want to look at technology at all.
Yep.
Kind of makes me
that feeling.
Feel uncomfortable. But then again, we're getting vaccinated, so going back to the Zendo might be a thing here pretty soon. So there's that, and that's what I've been thinking about. I have to. I'm really gonna like write all this down. Like, at this time you do this thing, and at this time you do this thing. Not to like be like get mad at myself if I don't stick with the schedule, but I think having a rigorous schedule of things is going to be really helpful for me managing all the things that I need to do to be like a normal person who's not disabled.
Do you typically manage things like that, like with a schedule that's not fixed necessarily, but like has sort of like timelines? Is that a way of organizing your life that you tend to use?
Yes. I mean, whenever anybody says, "Oh, can you do this for me?" I'm like, "When do you want it done by?" That's a really important question for me, because I need to know how much to do at one point and fit into my schedule. I mean, what it usually starts out off is that like I will be really, really strict in the beginning and kind of stick with it, and then I will continue to do those things like as if they're a habit, but I won't be like super strict about it. So if I skip a day, or if I do it at a different time one day, it's not that big of a deal. It was just more about getting into the habit of it and making sure that I'm integrating all the things that I need to be putting in. Like, same with like when I'm making a diet for my own health reasons. I'm like, okay, like here, we're going to plan out all these meals, and I'll do that for a few weeks and really put in the research. But then once I get used to doing that, I don't have to like be as strict with everything, because I'm just going to do it anyway.
You have a lot of experience with sort of inculcating healthy habits and practices into your life, and that is a huge asset for a meditation practice. I think that's like the hardest thing that for most people about making it into a normal everyday habit is that they're used to just sort of freedom all the time, and making changes is really hard in that kind of environment. But out of necessity, you've come up with lots of ways to train yourself.
Well, like
in that kind of thing.
I get it though. I get why people would be just like deterred from putting one more thing on their schedule, because I don't even feel like I have a lot of responsibilities. I don't have 2 kids like you. No one's really like relying on me for like anything that important.
You're relying on yourself for a lot of
yes, I'm relying on myself. So that's where all that comes from, is just like having to be a reliable person for myself and other people too, because I don't want to be so stressed out that I'm causing problems with my close friendships and other relationships, because that could happen. I mean, if you don't regulate yourself, it'll come out one way or another.
Right.
As I always find, I'll either get sick or I'll get really anxious, and one of the two. It could be both. My immune system, is reactive to stress, as with most people with autoimmune disorders. It's always directly related to stress, which that's why I just think having like a meditation routine is really, really important, especially for people with something like me, like an autoimmune disorder. But it doesn't have to be an autoimmune disorder, because honestly, like if I'm stressed, my joints hurt more too. And I don't know why that happens, but it just does. So
Something inflammation.
yeah,
I don't know.
exactly. I mean, look, the doctors don't know, so it's not like
Yeah.
anybody really knows why, but something about inflammation, I'm sure.
Yeah. That seems to be the most mysterious and the problem, the health problem that's the most pervasive, important, urgent, and mysterious in
It's
all of Western medicine.
exactly. It sounds so new agey. It doesn't sound like something that would actually be in like Western medicine. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. They could do blood works to indicate whether you have inflammation, but what's inflammation really? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's just, why is it even there? What is it doing? And I know it has something to do with my immune system. I
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So yeah, reducing inflammation is basically what I'm doing with this meditation practice and eating healthy and exercising and getting to sleep on time, because the when I don't do those things, it sucks.
Can you talk a little bit about your experience of the relationship between zazen and stress? And I mean, I talked about it in my own experience a little bit last time, and I actually feel like it's really kind of a highly personal thing, like the way that zazen interacts with stress and with one's own personal stress response. And like so many forms of meditation, especially the more kind of clinical ones, the ones developed in the West, derived from Buddhist ideas, are explicitly designed to reduce certain physiological stress responses. And you mean like mindfulness-based stress reduction is the name of the most sort of celebrated of those
Mm.
techniques. And so, so many kind of focused mental forms of meditation seem to be about reducing stress. It's as
Yeah.
same for the sort of guided meditation apps that everybody's so into. But zazen being so undirected, I feel like it's got a strange and interesting relationship to it, and I feel like it varies a lot from person to person. So how has Zen practice and stress been related in your
Okay,
life?
I'll tell you. Sometimes it can actually make you feel more stressed out
Mm.
at first, because this is what I was talking to my friend about today, because she was saying like, oh, like I've been meditating, but it's kind of making me like emotional. I'm like, yeah, that can definitely happen, because you're really facing things that you're spending some time with yourself when you might be like so distracted during the day that you don't have time to even think about those things, or well, you don't actually have to think about them. That's the funny thing. You don't have to think about them for them to bother you or for them to come up during meditation at
For
all.
sure.
But somehow a lot of times what it is, but even if you
Mm-hmm.
didn't actually think those words in your head. And if you're not doing it regularly, then yeah, that can come up when you're meditating. I think that's a barrier to a lot of people. Like, oh, I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
meditate because it's like it kind of makes you feel bad at first.
Mm-hmm.
But the cool thing about it, from my experience anyway, is that the more I meditate, I'm dealing with all those things regularly, so they never build up on top of each other.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when you're super stressed and you have a lot of things going on, you actually ignore a lot of the problems that you're facing emotionally. And I think this pandemic experience has been the pinnacle of people not dealing with
Mm.
the problems that are around them. Even if they don't have anything to do, I think everyone's been distracting themselves because there was nothing that they could actually do about the situation that they were in. Except for maybe meditate about it, but that's still hard to face when you're in the middle of
Mm-hmm.
it. Sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
can't face those things until you're out of it. You don't have to deal with it anymore. So now, or I'm not like in the middle of the pandemic anymore. So now I've noticed like there was a period of time, I think for at least a month, where I was recovering from it emotionally because I hadn't been really dealing with all the stress from the pandemic on the level that I should have been, just by which is meditating can be that way for some people. I guess other people could be therapy or something else. But yeah, for me, that's the best way to deal with those things. And again, I'm not thinking about them. I'm not. It's not like a therapy session where I'm like talking to myself. I'm like, "What? How did you feel about that
Mm-hmm.
time when you were little and you fell off the swing set?" It's more instinctual.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's the right word, but
Could be off base, but is embodied the right word? Maybe. Because
maybe.
the thing that resonated for me the most about the way it is for me, about what you were just saying, is that the nice thing about Zazen is that there's kind of time for everything. You know,
Yeah.
like the so all of the stuff that's there will come up in its due course. And the thing that reduces stress for me when I'm practicing zazen really regularly is all about just sort of the state of my body on the cushion,
Mm.
and the breathing, and allowing the sort of tension to melt out of my body, and then the emotional and mental states follow that. And as that's happening, the things come up, and I might tense up my body in a particular way that's related to the feeling of whatever I'm remembering from
Mm-hmm.
yesterday or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then as I continue to breathe into that posture and relax into that posture, that tension melts away. And then that emotion kind of resolves in a connected, like, I mean, I wouldn't even say that they're different and related. I'd say that they're identical experiences, the sort of resolution of the emotion and the relaxing of the body. So that's how I understand sort of the processing that takes place in zazen, as a body experience. Does that land for you?
Yeah. But it can be very painful though. Sometimes it's extremely difficult to, land in that spot where you're uh kind of relaxing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was at this endo a while ago and I had thought of some traumatic event in my life, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I tried and I couldn't like calm it, and I left early. There was probably like
Hmm.
it was an hour and a half meditation, and I probably left like in the last 30 minutes because I just didn't want to deal with it. And then after that, it actually got worse. I was like emotional that whole day. Where if I had
Hmm.
just sat for another 30 minutes, I probably would have been okay.
Hmm. Well, I mean, I think it's okay for a sit to stir stuff up and be
Yeah.
hard and have you end up kind of worse for wear afterwards. But there is sort of that quality of sticking with it, and getting through it, that can feel really like a huge release when you accomplish that in over the course of one sit. But I don't talk about zazen with other people in terms that are about sort of success and accomplishment and resolution, without mentioning that sometimes it also can be unresolved and tumultuous and sort of leave you hanging in that way. I think it's really important for people to keep in mind and forgive themselves for if that's what happens.
Well, I think this is why meditation is so hard to integrate into a routine because
Yeah.
it's difficult. It's difficult to sit there for one because it can be boring. And your mind is just gonna go everywhere to figure out what it can entertain itself with, even if it's like past trauma. So like, remember this?
Uh huh.
That was something to think about. It'll be more exciting than sitting here. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good impression of the voice that does that kind of stuff.
I just imagined it like a really annoying kid from like middle school, just trying to get my attention. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, then also just because things come up and because it's emotional, like it. That's another reason it's just so hard to integrate in a sustainable way.
Hmm. That's a really important point. And the people I went to college with, the people I studied meditation with in college, particularly actually the graduate students and the doctoral students, the researchers, a lot of them were focused on the downsides or like the risks of meditation because they had gone, you know, hard into Vipassana retreats or whatever it was when they were in their early 20s, late teens or early 20s, and had really dark periods, like really bad experiences, prolonged, some of them of like a truly psychiatric emergency nature, sometimes even needing hospitalization or like, you know, medicine. And the thing that, I mean, it was very important to them that they bring it up in a lot of conversations about meditation because they were surrounded by, you know, undergrads who were having this sort of flowering Buddhist practice for the first time, and just having their college adorable my first enlightenment experience. And
Yeah.
these people were often very quick to be like, you cannot relate to your practice that way because it's inherently destabilizing, and that's what it's for. And you know, that's really one of the best arguments for monasticism to me, is that it's like a safe, contained environment to go through the kind of breakdown that like real Zen practice requires. And doing it in real life scenarios is kind of a paradoxical proposal and a risky one. And it worries me sometimes too. Like, am I going to sort of lose all, like there are descriptions of the path that seem pretty consistent, that for a lot of people, they go through experiences that I've never gone through, of just like complete dissociation from reality. And I tend to think of those as doing it wrong, as like messing up, falling off the wagon somehow. But it seems like it just happens.
Well, it could be that it was already there.
Right.
Well,
That's true.
I would definitely say it was already there.
That's what these scientists were saying too.
That's what Zazen is. It's just going to what's already there. So
Yeah, that's well said.
if you, it would have come up at some point in their lives.
Yeah.
But this meditation can just bring it up a lot quicker than maybe you're ready for.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do have to be ready for that. It's not easy to deal with that, especially if you feel like you're alone and maybe you do need to talk to someone about it instead of just sitting through it the whole time.
Well, so how you're going into this kind of uptick in activity and sort of, you know, worldly stuff. How do you know that it's worth the risk to sort of up the practice, the work, you know, in the risk in these kind of terms, like of destabilizing things coming up? I mean, we've talked about benefits of relaxing and grounding you, but like there are these risks too. Like, what is it about your practice right now, your instincts about your practice, that say to you that it's worth it?
Because I'm thinking long term. And I think that typically I do feel like when things are going not, I don't want to say going wrong, when things are more stressful, maybe when there's more going on, is when I tend to gravitate towards a practice, a more rigorous practice, because I guess it's, you know, it's helped me in the past, and I don't think it'll ever get as bad as it did in the past. So I trust myself that, like, if it is destabilizing, that eventually, like, I'll come out on the other side, like, even stronger than I was before. So it's worth the risk of that happening, because it's only temporary.
That's beautiful and strong, and I really honor that. The thing that you just said about gravitating towards practice when things get crazy feels also like a really positive sign for me, because I feel like certainly earlier in my practice, and also in the lives of a lot of people I know who aren't as serious about practice as I am, but are, you know, interested or trying, or are off and on in their various ways, the opposite thing tends to happen, where people are like, everything is relaxing and wonderful, I think I'll try meditating, that seems to go with relaxing and wonderful. And then as soon as anything gets difficult, the practice is the first thing to go out the window, because it feels like some sort of non-essential, you know, like hobby or something. And going into it when things get crazy feels like a much wiser stance. I mean, that's what I did. I don't know if I did it consciously, but that is actually always what I do. The period of intensive practice that I'm in now kicked off, when my wife was pregnant with our second kid and the pandemic was starting. And then before that, the last really big wave of practice I had before that was the summer before our first kid was born. And it just happened.
Oh,
It just
wow.
happens to me. It's not like I go through a conscious process of like, it's time to do this. It's just like the body tells me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's actually a pretty good technique or way to deal with things. Most people aren't going to have the instinct to do that. But it doesn't matter because you can cultivate it yourself. You don't have to have instincts to amp things up when you're feeling bad. But, especially if you're like in a really like deep depression, doing something about it is the last thing that you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I even think that I will have to give therapy. I'll have to get it credit for this one. That was part of the DBT thing is opposite reaction is what they taught us. So if you're feeling like doing something and you feel very strongly about it, it's probably the opposite thing that you should be doing. So, I mean, that's a simplification, but just as an example, like if I'm really stressed out, the last thing I want to do is exercise. The last thing I want to do is start a meditation routine. And the last thing I want to do is start, focusing on recipes that are going to make me healthier. But that's the thing that I will do, because if I don't keep going, I feel like it's only going to get worse.
Oh, it's such a good Zen attitude because, what's the point of practicing with the things you already naturally do without resistance? The resistance is where the training happens. It's no different from any other form of exercise, right? Like you don't lift weights that are so easy to lift that it doesn't like cause you any strain. You find the point of resistance and you push a little bit past it if you can. And that's how you get stronger. And it's kind of weird this is verging dangerously on to like military Zen territory, but like that really does feel like the Zen approach to practice.
Well, don't you think there's like sort of this risk too, like where people just like spout out all the benefits of meditation, but they don't tell you like what could possibly happen and how difficult it is going to be?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's cool. Yeah, you want people to know the benefits because ultimately that's why you would be doing it. But if you don't tell people the other things, then when it happens to them, they're going to feel like that they're just not good at meditating. And that couldn't be further from the truth.
Householders is a production of the Atlanta Soto Zen Center in Atlanta, Georgia, and the Silent Thunder Order. Find us on the web at aszc.org.
Our Sangha depends on your support. You can donate by PayPal to donate at storder.org. Gasho.